The purpose of the proposed amendments before the Honourable House today is really to address and rectify the issue regarding the demotion of the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, ECA, from Category 1 to Category 2 status by the United States of America Federal Aviation Administration. Madam Speaker, as we're all aware, the Federal Aviation Administration is the largest transportation agency of the United States government and is essentially responsible to regulate all aspects of civil aviation in that country, as well as over surrounding international waters. ECA, Madam Speaker, is the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, and this agency is responsible for serving the organization in Caribbean states. This specialized agency of the OECS is mandated to promote the safe and orderly civil aviation practices among member states. The agency serves, Madam Speaker, as the Aviation Accident and Incident Investigation Authority for the OECS and its members. Just by way of background, this year, Madam Speaker, the U.S. Federal Aviation Authority announced that the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States would have been assigned a Category 2 safety rating as a result of our non-compliance with the safety standards of the International Civil Aviation Organization known as ICAO. The Federal Aviation Administration has established 2 ratings for the status of countries. Category 1, Madam Speaker, relates to a country that does comply with the International Civil Aviation Organization standards. In this case, Madam Speaker, the inspectors of the FAA, that's the Federal Aviation Authority, would, on their assessment, determine the country's Civil Aviation Authority would have determined that this authority has the ability to license and oversees air carriers in accordance with ICAO aviation safety standards. As it relates to a Category 2 rating, simply means, Madam Speaker, that the laws or regulations lack the necessary requirements to oversee air carriers in accordance with the minimum international standards, or that civil aviation authorities are deficient in one or more areas, including technical expertise, trained personnel, record keeping, inspection procedures, or the resolution of safety concerns. With a Category 2 rating, carriers of member states of the OECS can continue existing service to the United States, but will not be allowed to establish any new services to the U.S. The second status relates to a country, as I said previously, that does not comply with the standards of the International Civil Aviation Organization. This rating, Madam Speaker, is applied if one or more of the following deficiencies are identified. 1, the country lacks laws or regulations necessary to support the certification and oversight of air carriers in accordance with minimum international standards. 2, the Civil Aviation Authority lacks the technical expertise, resources, and organization to license or oversee carrier operations. 3, the local authority does not have adequately trained and qualified technical personnel. 4, Madam Speaker, the local authority does not provide adequate inspector guidance to ensure enforcement of and compliance with minimum international standards. And 5, the local authority has insufficient documentation and records of certification and inadequate continuing oversight and surveillance of air carrier operations. The OECS Secretariat has proposed primary legislation and a treaty amendment order to address the sub-regional concern regarding the demotion of ECHO from Category 1 to Category 2 status. The proposed amendments involve empowering the Director of ECHO to regulate matters of safety and security related to civil aviation within the OECS, including our federation, by way of subsidiary legislation. In other words, Madam Speaker, the amendments proposed by the OECS Secretariat relate to the powers of the Minister to make regulations respecting all aspects of civil aviation for our federation. The proposal is to shift that regulation power between the Minister responsible for civil aviation and the Director of ECHO. The current proposed draft from the OECS Secretariat would, if enacted, facilitate the reassignment of the power to make regulations for civil aviation, specifically in relation to safety and security, as I said earlier, to the Director of ECHO. Madam Speaker, I must say that the Secretariat met with all Attorneys General and our senior parliamentary representative officials of the member states, and this was done on the 27th of September 2022. All OECS territories have agreed to implement the OECS model amendments. Madam Speaker, the government, our government that is, fully understands and appreciates the importance of the aviation industry. The amendments take a balanced approach between the need to protect the traveling public and, of course, ensuring the viability of the sector. These amendments, Madam Speaker, are really about general aviation and balancing the critically important need for safety with making sure that the regulatory burden is not too great to bear. We as a government will continue to monitor the implementation and work with the OECS and the sector to bring forward additional reforms if they are required. We understand, Madam Speaker, that the main objective of the Civil Aviation Act is to enhance and promote safety within the aviation sector. So it is absolutely important for us to ensure that the focus is always maintained, even with amendments. Aviation, Madam Speaker, is a critical part of our lives in this federation and has become a critical component of the air transport system. A vibrant aviation sector is important for many industries, including the tourism industry. I think it is important, Madam Speaker, for us to understand that the aviation industry is something that we rely heavily on as a tourism destination. And as such, Madam Speaker, it is important that we maintain not only as a country, but as a region, the status mentioned earlier, that is the status of a country that does comply with the standards of the International Civil Aviation Organization. The amendments incorporate existing regulatory practices in the legislation and helps to ensure that these practices, Madam Speaker, are not overlooked. The amendments do not at all change the primary objective of the legislation, which is and must always be safety. Think that, Madam Speaker, the stakeholders within the aviation industry are cognizant of the demotion of the regional body ECHO from Category 1 to Category 2 status, and would indeed be very comforted to know that the government is working hard for them, along with our regional partners, in delivering rules and regulations that would actually assist them in their work. And so I crave your indulgence at this time, Madam Speaker, to applaud those who continue to lead the efforts in Civil Aviation Department here in St. Kitts. I have only been on the job for a mere 2 months, just about, and the staff at the Civil Aviation Department are doing an excellent job in ensuring that our federation remains compliant. I think 2 of them recently represented the federation at the recently held IKEA General Assembly in Canada, and they represented us well. I want to thank, particularly at this time, Royston Griffin, who is a part of the Civil Aviation Department. He ensures, Madam Speaker, that we are kept in the loop at all time, and has brought me up to speed within this short period of time. And so in closing, Madam Speaker, I want to crave the support of my colleagues and this Honourable House, and hope that the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022 will have safe passage through this Honourable House. May it please you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for number 2 and mover. I recognize the Honourable Senator Iseline Phillip.
Madam Speaker, I rise as seconder in support of this Civil Aviation Amendment Bill before this Honourable House. And at this time, I will actually take the opportunity to offer some remarks and present some supporting comments in relation to the bill that is being tabled for passage. So, Madam Speaker, in the past 7 years, past 2 specifically as well, I think the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis, we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot in terms of a global pandemic. We've also been through quite a bit in terms of, a level of political distrust, a level of administration that we have maybe seen a little bit of injustice, experienced some public distrust for persons in authority. And, Madam Speaker, the Federation as a state, obviously globally, has also experienced some trauma in relation to the demotion that we have heard that we've experienced in terms of civil aviation as a result of non-compliance. And this is important for us to recognize that under the previous leadership, under the previous administration, that non-compliance was not only demonstrated in the administration of government, but it's also seen in, our regional and international standards when it comes to, obviously, international business and civil aviation. And while this is disappointing, unfortunately, it's not surprising, because as I said, I show up to cabinets every Monday and there's revealed something new, as what we have not been doing, or what has been exposed as to where we have to fix a lot of problems and clean up a lot of problems. And so, I just want to take the opportunity to explain to the public why this is so important, why we're tabling this bill at this time, and why we're in support of these amendments. Although they may look lengthy, it's important for us to have these amendments done, because the demotion from Category 1 to Category 2 essentially ultimately would limit our ability. It would have impacts on our tourism, because then it would limit the number of carriers and airlines that can come in and out of the Federation. And so that is why we have to be tabling this bill today. And so, Madam Speaker, I would hope that the members opposite would be in great support, and that we don't have too much lengthy discussion over the amendments that have been tabled, because it is under their leadership that we had been demoted. And so here we are as a government having to prioritize this, because the Honourable Member for number 2, who is also the Minister of Tourism, has a great vision for tourism, and that is impacted by the fact that we are now a Category 2 when it comes to civil aviation. And so we want to make sure that, as a government that values integrity and values the rule of law and actually places country above self and not self-aggrandizement, we want to make sure that we have these things in order so that the business of the Federation and the business of the government, the business of the people of this Federation can be done and be done well. And so with these few comments, I'd actually like to reiterate the support for this bill and second it, and this is really just the first step. These amendments for the Civil Aviation Act are just the first steps that we see that we need to take to make sure that we come back into compliance and hopefully get reinstated as our Category 1 status so that it can effectively translate into a more flourishing tourism and safe and secure civil aviation industry and sector. May it please, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Phillip. I recognize the honorable member for Nevis 9.
Madam Speaker, as the previous Minister of Aviation, I think it's important that I rise to say a few words on this bill. To indicate, of course, my support, because I think that these bills become necessary from time to time, but also to clarify, because I think the Honourable Senator opposite has sought to lay some blame, and while that is par for the course, I think that we have to understand context in relation to aviation in our region. The aviation system that we now are a part of is an OECS-wide system. It therefore means that it is only as strong as the weakest link. And I assure you that St. Kitts and Nevis is not the weakest link. I think that that is important because we spent a lot of time. In fact, we have done, I think, Madam Senator, your microphone is still on. We have done quite a few amendments. In fact, I believe it was quite recently that we did 2 amendments in rapid succession as we sought to grapple with this problem. But it would be erroneous to say that it was necessarily a failing of St. Kitts and Nevis. I think that point needs to be made clear. Because if there's a failing, for example, in St. Lucia, or in Antigua, or in any of the other constituent countries that collectively make up ECA, then we all get a failing grade. Because we are assessed as a single entity, a single space. And I want to make that very clear because I worked very hard when I was there to try to keep us compliant. And I have had my own concerns, and I would share them here now. Because you see, Madam Speaker, we have these regional organizations. And I felt sometimes, and I would issue a fair warning to the Honourable Minister and member for St. Christopher II, who moved this bill so eloquently. I thought she's been here for a very long time, but that's a different point for a different day. But I would want to give fair warning that part of the dilemma that you're going to experience is that there are technocrats within these organizations who, in my respectful view, are constantly seeking to carve out certain areas of power for themselves. I don't say that with any intent to be discourteous, but when I read the provisions that are contained herein, and I recognize that a functionary from ECA, referred to I think as the Director General, is under these amendments to be given considerable power and authority. In fact, if I can take you, Madam Speaker, to section 7, subsection 7, which seeks to amend the section 10 of the Principal Act. It says this: in exercising any powers or discharging any functions in relation to, and it lists a number of areas. But this is the part that I think is interesting. It ends, the Director General shall act independently and shall not be subject to any influence or directive from any person or authority. Now, what that means is that, Madam Minister, you will never be able to tell the Director General anything. Mr. Prime Minister, you wouldn't be able to tell him anything either. And that has always troubled me, because at the end of the day, it is the minister who is responsible to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, not the Director General. But from time to time, they propose these amendments, which I see as an effort to carve out for themselves certain powers, certain authority. And I've always had a philosophical difference with ECA in particular over that approach. Because when this legislation goes into effect, certainly the government has the numbers to pass it, the result will be that on these specified matters, the Director General is not answerable to anyone. So you are in fact elevating a technocrat to a position where he or she has untrammeled authority and power. And if they were to err, which could happen, there is nobody in St. Kitts or Antigua who could call them and say, you have lost your way. We don't agree with that. And that is where some say, when I make these arguments, oh, you're the typical politician, you want to hold on to the power. But I feel at the end of the day, if the Director General were to get it wrong, then the member for number 2 pays a price, because the people of St. Kitts will exact the price from her, not him. And that is always a concern for me. And as I look throughout this legislation and what is proposed, I see the Director General now being given the authority to make regulations, for example. And we all know that Section 37 of our Constitution and following gives the power to make laws to Parliament. And subsidiary legislation ordinarily, not always, but ordinarily, would be made under and pursuant to an act of Parliament, but in the usual course it will be the minister who will promulgate regulations. This is now telling us that the Director General is to have power, in some instances under the legislation, to promulgate regulations that will govern St. Kitts and Nevis, which really amounts to I'm searching for the word. It's a transfer, let me use that word, inelegant as it is, of the authority from the minister who's responsible to the cabinet and from the member of parliament charged with aviation, who's a member for number 2. She is in essence, and this legislation will in essence transfer that right to pass subsidiary legislation, regulations, to the Director General, whomsoever he or she might be. That again, for me, philosophically, is troubling. Because I see no reason, for example, why, if these are model regulations, they can't be provided to the respective governments of the sub-region and passed or promulgated, might be the better language, by the minister. When you look at the scheme of this particular bill, it actually is, again, to my view, even more confusing. Why? Because some aspects are saying that the Director General will be the authority to issue regulations, and other aspects of the bill give the minister that authority. And we heard, as the Honourable Member mover of the bill said, that attorneys general would have met and they somehow came up with something where they would share the responsibilities for regulations. That to me is a recipe for some confusion, because it would really mean that in some instances the Director General becomes the authority, and in other instances the minister is the authority. And I believe that anything that complicates a system potentially complicates the ability to do business and to do so in an efficacious way. Now, I don't lay any blame for this at the feet of the government, because I understand that this is being promulgated at a regional level, OECS level. But I would just sound those warnings, because having been there and having dealt with this time and time again, I see this tension, I see this difficulty that can potentially arise if this legislation goes into effect. The Director General is being given tremendous power to promulgate subsidiary legislation or regulations. And then in some instances, it's not answerable to anybody. He becomes God. Nobody could tell him nothing. And that, I think, is problematic on its face in terms of how the legislation is intended to work. So, I have one minor point to make, and that is in relation to Section 12. And Section 12, which proposes to amend Section 34, Madam Speaker, deals with the whole issue of recordings. And it says at 12B1, the following records that relate to an aviation occurrence being investigated under this act shall not be disclosed to the public or for purposes other than accident or incident investigation unless ordered by the court. Now again, I don't know if these are sort of standard regulations for the industry, but I have a difficulty, because again, I think that the government has to reserve some discretion in certain circumstances. I racked my mind to come up with a scenario, but I'm not the most imaginative of persons, and so I wasn't able to. But I can contemplate that there might be scenarios where in the public interest, there's an incident at RLB, or Van Sammer in Nevis, and there's great public apprehension. And there is a need for the government in its discretion to release certain information to the public. This is saying that if there are recordings of an incident, cockpit voice recorder, etc., airborne image recordings, that the only way that those can be released is by way of court order. That strikes me as odd. That there will be no discretion left in the minister or in the government or in the cabinet to say, you know what, this is a matter of great public concern. Let us, worst thing is to try to be imaginative on your feet. Well, let me try. Let us say that the public is concerned that an incident has happened at the airport and it's a terrorist incident. And there's great alarm throughout St. Kitts and Nevis. And you want to quell that because it's not true. You have the benefit of the cockpit recorder or some airborne image recordings. That will dispel that immediately. It's basically saying, can't be disclosed to the general public unless you go to court and get a court order. Now, I'm not sure that is the intention, but that is how I'm reading the relevant provision. And again, I'm uncomfortable with provisions which take away from the government the ability to take decisions, because ultimately it is the government which is responsible to the people. And it is the people that the government will hold the government accountable in the event of various occurrences that can and sometimes unfortunately do happen. Insofar as a general comment from me, aviation is critical. Tourism is critical. We need both, because airplanes bring tourists, they also bring cargo. And it is important that we keep our airports safe. And I would want to join the Honourable Member for St. Christopher too in her praise of the staff at the Civil Aviation department because they have done a phenomenal job for a small staff. I was just a little disappointed she didn't go on to also praise me and say that I trained them well. But that is perhaps for a different discussion at a different time. But I think that, Madam Speaker, and I made the point in here before, that in aviation, St. Kitts and Nevis has punched well above its weight. And we have had a number of incidents when our people here have been summoned by TSA to train others elsewhere in the region. And I believe that people like Mr. Griffin, who have been called upon by international organizations from time to time to train others, that they are a tremendous asset to St. Kitts and Nevis. And I believe, Minister, that they will guide you well. And I commend this initial effort, but as I said, I could not let it go without at least sharing some concerns that I have and seeking, where possible, to correct the record that they fall from category 1 to category 2 does not necessarily indicate any shortcomings in St. Kitts and Nevis. It may indicate shortcomings elsewhere within the sub-region. And with those few words, I wish the bill safe passage, and I trust and hope, Madam Speaker, that my concerns prove to be unmerited, unnecessary, and that you will have a Director General who is willing to work closely with the Ministers of Aviation across the region, because if you get the wrong person in that position with this kind of power, I think we'll have a real problem on our hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Nevis 9. Is there another presenter? I recognize the Honorable Attorney General.
May it please you, Madam Speaker, I just rise very briefly to acknowledge the concerns of the member for number 9. The amendment does give the Director General certain powers to make regulations. However, the Act previously stated that the Minister had power to make regulations in respect of all civil aviation matters. What the amendment does, it carves out the Director General having power to make regulations in respect of safety and security only. So it isn't a matter of just transferring the ministerial power to the Director General. It is making provision so that we can get back into Tier 1 for the Director General, who is the senior technocrat in respect of civil aviation in the region, to then make regulations that cannot be challenged with respect to safety and security only. So I just wanted the general public to be aware of that. Secondly, the other areas in which the Director General are brought in are really administrative matters. The selection of the Director General in relation to Section 10, and also with respect to the Director General issuing directives, which typically technocrats of that nature typically do issue directives generally. So it was just giving a wider scope for the Director General to give those directives to the Minister, for the Minister to then implement any procedures or policies to improve the safety and security of our civil aviation industry and our airports and so forth. So I don't want there to be any concern that the government is trying to give away its power to someone in a foreign land. That is not what the intention is. But with these international obligations, the ICAO has said to us, for you to be in the good books again and to go from Tier 2 where you are now to Tier 1, we want the senior technocrat with respect to civil aviation in the OECS to have the power to make safety and security regulations, which we are bound by, but which are very limited in scope to those two areas. So I just wanted to rise to let the country know, and my learned friend, the member for number 9 know that we are aware that we're giving away some power, but this is not too much. And it is done so that for the greater good for all of us, as has been so eloquently said by the member for number 9, as well as his successor, the member for number 2. So I just wanted to clarify that from my seat as Attorney General. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Attorney General. I recognize the Honorable Member for St. Christopher 3.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise with your leave to just make a brief contribution to the bill before this Honorable House, the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022. And first of all, stand in support of the passage of this bill through this Honorable House that was moved by our able Minister of Tourism and International Transport, the member from number 2, and also in support of the comments made by our learned AG, and to acknowledge the contribution made by the Honorable Member from constituency number 9, from Nevis 9. And in doing so, I wanted to, yes, ensure that the public understands, as the AG was saying, this is not a carte blanche transfer of power to the Director General. In fact, I would take this opportunity to read from the Parent Act, which indicates the Minister may give the Director General directions to do a particular thing or refrain from doing a particular thing if the Minister considers it appropriate to give such directions, A, in the interest of national security, and in connection with any matter appearing to him to affect the relations of St. Christopher and Nevis with another country or territory. And it goes on in many different areas of the Act to identify what it is the Minister is able to do from what it is the Director General can do. And the amendment to this particular section seeks to insert a new subsection called subsection 7, which outlines some particular powers that have now been transferred or created for the Director General. And I just wanted to read some of those to understand what powers the Director General are getting as a result of this insertion. A, the granting, suspension, or revocation of civil aviation documents. The issue, suspension, or revocation of medical certificates. The issue of a validation permit for a foreign license. The granting of recognition of a foreign medical assessment or certificate used in a foreign country. The granting of exemptions or deviations or waivers, the enforcement of this Act, regulations made by the Director General hereunto, or any other law relating to aviation safety or to aviation security. Those, I believe, is what it goes on to say the Director General shall act independently in the dispensation of his duties or her duties as relates to these, and must not come under any influence. But the government still maintains the ability to police the Act as it is broadly intended so to do. Additionally, with respect to section 34 that the member alluded to, member from number 9, which relates to seeking a court order for the release of recordings and so on during an investigation. While we can look at it from one angle, we must also be cognizant of the fact that we also want to protect the sanctity of investigations and people from maybe malicious attempts to unveil something for reasons that are not so nice. And so we believe that in our court system, as I believe the Prime Minister mentioned, our rule of law index is getting better. such that when we approach the court in an instance where it is an emergency, where there needs to be a quelling of emotions, for instance, as the member from number 9 alluded to, we are confident that the court system will be able to respond to the needs of the nation. And so while we take the point made by member number 9 that oftentimes these sorts of legislation that are coupled and mixed with jurisdictions outside of St. Kitts and Nevis, having to meet international standards that have been set, can sometimes seem as though they are, in fact, taking away a country's ability to have its full sovereign rule over its business. But we do live in a global world, an international world, where standards have to be set and met such that on each side there can be confidence that we are operating in good faith and for the safety and protection of all who use our facilities. And so, without much further ado, I want to take this opportunity to commend the member from number 2, because this is the first opportunity we've had a parliamentary debate, and a bill of this significance, which I presume has to be passed across the region, the member from number 2 has ensured that it is early on the docket of parliamentary proceedings to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis is doing its part and fulfilling its regional and international obligations. And so I want to commend the member from number 2 and the government by extension for not waiting or wasting time in order to make sure we are doing our part to become compliant. And I trust and hope that our colleagues across the region will continue to work together because we have a lot of work to do here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And we have to make sure that as we look to invest in new opportunities for St. Kitts and Nevis, that we are not hindered by activities such as this that are preventing for us to realize the true benefit of the investments and the new policies that we seek to have. So may it please you, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for number 3. Is there another presenter? I recognize the Honorable Member for Nevis 11.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to just make a brief intervention at this point in time, because I do believe that this particular bill is an important one, and one should not trivialize it in any way and suggest that we are the government that is introducing this particular bill or these particular amendments, and should have been done a long time ago. And no offense meant, Madam Speaker. I say that because when you look into this particular bill, for example, Section 33, it shows you the seriousness of what we are trying to do here today. Because we haven't had any accident in this federation by any major airline or any major aircraft per se. And I realize the member for number 3 would have knocked wood, which is good. But I want to cast our minds back to, I believe it was September 26th, thereabout, 2009, where there was an incident that didn't turn out to be an unfortunate one. I believe it was a British Airways aircraft that almost ran out of runway up here at RLB because they entered the runway at a point where they should have backtracked further down the runway to get going. Well, that report is available online. I'm sure I read it a couple of times in the past, and that's why my mind is going back there. Why I bring that up is because that could have been an incident that turned out unfortunate and turned out to be an accident that we would have had to deal with in this federation. And where that would have led to, Madam Speaker, sorry, I apologize. These amendments that we're looking at today seem to suggest to me that we are somewhat behind, yes, in terms of getting it right. If it had happened then, I cannot fathom at this point what could have been our aviation sector here in the Federation, and in terms of what the implications could have been. Because here's what it is, Madam Speaker. Accidents with the loss of lives is a really emotional situation that a country has to deal with. And we cannot get away from that, because if, for example, that accident had occurred, then you would have had the British investigative arm of aviation. I don't know what it's called. I forgot what they are called. But I know you have the FAA, which is, of course, the US. Then you have the French and the Dutch. All of them have their own civil authority that governs, investigate accidents. So in terms of the British, they may have come and imposed their authority on the government here of the day. And that is why it's important that the point that was raised about who have that oversight and who have that authority. In this case, the Director General apparently has the authority. The government of the day will have to be answering. But what do they answer to? Or what do they say? When in truth and in fact, the Director General is not necessarily answerable to the government. People will be calling, people will be making noise and asking for the government to respond, not the Director General. Because in the United States, for example, families, they will be clamoring for information. The emotions will be running high there. If it's not the United States, it's some other country. And as such, a government will have to be in a position to answer accordingly. If they're not able to answer, even locally, it may be a problem for that government. And if you have a major situation, an international situation on your hand, and the government is not able to answer and adequately answer, then of course, I don't know what may become of that government or the current government, present government, whatever the case might be. Because you can lose a government as a result. And there's no two ways about it. It happened on your soil. The answers are being sought from your own soil. And if they're not forthcoming, international media, international pressures will come to bear on any government. And that is why we have to get it right and make sure that the necessary authority is in the right hands. And I bring that up because we don't want anything to happen in that regard, an accident with the loss of lives or any major accident of that sort. But you have to think that accidents do happen. And if an accident happens, then you must be in a position to respond and respond accordingly. Let's look at that same example that was just alluded to. You have things like black boxes, cockpit voice recorders. These things in other countries have been stolen from accident sites. And what that does, it compounds the problem even more, whereby you're seeking for answers to find out exactly what may have caused an accident. And you don't have the necessary tools, the necessary information. And as such, I believe the regulation should be in such a way that whomever the perpetrators or those persons would have entered these sites, for example, unauthorized persons, they must be punished and punished daily. Because these particular type of accidents have significant financial bearing on whomever has to carry that cost. Insurance, the country, or whomever, the airline, for example. So it therefore means here in the Federation, we must have the necessary regulations in place, stiff regulations that is, far-reaching ones, to ensure that if there are unauthorized access made to any accident sites, that persons who are the culprits must be punished and punished severely. Because we are saying that we want to be at international standards, so let us make sure all of our laws are consistent with international standards and all of the necessary persons who should be carrying out and ensuring these laws are enforced have the necessary ability to do so. So, Madam Speaker, I do believe that this particular bill is an important one. I don't think it requires a lot of debate per se. There are some amendments, almost 20 of them thereabout. In most cases, they're in order, in my opinion, but I just want us to understand that these amendments could have far-reaching effects and implications that we must take seriously and ensure that we get it right at this stage. And also, just by way of mechanics, I went through the bill, and it's just mechanics, really. And I hope at the committee stage we can correct all of these. I see the punctuations come after the inverted commas in every case and in every page. I don't know if it's a mistake, but it's not correct. So we're going to correct those at committee stage, I suppose. Well, I'm not necessarily an English teacher, but that's why I say we have to get it right, you know. And we're here to help, aren't we, Leader of Opposition? Sorry? At midnight. The doors are still open, so I can walk out at any time. But no, I mean, but we just need to get that right so that at least once it gets into the public domain, it is correct. So we want to be reflective of the Honorable House that we're doing business right. Well, with those few words, Madam Speaker, sorry, I'll get it right someday. May it please you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Nevis 11. I recognize the Honorable Member for St. Christopher 8.
Madam Speaker, I rise to support, of course, the Honorable Member for number 2, to really speak on the bill, Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022. I had the opportunity to sit with the heads of government recently in Mountstrat at the OECS Heads of Government or OECS Authority 72nd Authority meeting. And this, of course, was a matter that was very prominent on the agenda to be dealt with. And a number of the concerns that were expressed by the member for number 9 were also expressed at that meeting. This is an OECS or regional or sub-regional approach to deal with the issues of civil aviation. Our region, our sub-region has been downgraded. And as such, we thought at that meeting of the authority that this should be approached collectively. And in doing so, we had meetings with the necessary authority and technocrats. And those questions were asked. And in that particular meeting, we had the Prime Minister of Grenada, Honorable Mitchell, we had the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, Honorable Gonzalez, the Prime Minister of Antigua, Honorable Brown, myself, and the Chair, Honorable Premier of Mountstrat, and the Honorable Premier of Anguilla. There was a representative for the government of St. Lucia, and however, the Prime Minister was not present, that I can recall, even by Zoom, when this matter was discussed, but he was well represented at the meeting. And a number of assurances were given. And the assurances that were given were in response to the very important concerns that were expressed by the member of number 9. And even from my side, our AG and our member from number 3 sought to really speak to those concerns of who has the real power when it comes to dealing with civil aviation in the sub-region. And when that question was asked, the answer that we got was, we are aware that these are sovereign countries, sovereign nations, and we in no way seek to really infringe upon that sovereignty. And so with that assurance, it was said and was put forward that it is necessary that something like this be passed so that we can once again be upgraded to number one. Having a category 1 type of status really puts us at a higher level in terms of how we are viewed. And that would, of course, impact significantly on the confidence of airlines coming to the sub-region. We thought that if individual countries were to approach this, that in some way they would not have a significant impact as if we were to approach it as an OECS. And hence, this was done and sent to the countries and asked that these be passed in the various parliaments. And that is why it is here today. And so I really want to commend the honorable member from number 2 and the minister who deals with aviation for bringing this bill so quickly. When I saw it on the agenda, I myself was shocked because I had just returned from Montserrat. And it seems like she's ahead of the game. That speaks well of her leadership. But I also want to recognize her supporting staff, and the member from number 9 also mentioned his name, Mr. Royston Griffin. I know Mr. Royston Griffin, a resident of Keys, and he is an authority on this. And I'm sure, and I will support what he would have mentioned with respect to Mr. Griffin and the support and guidance that he would give to the member from number 2 as the Minister for Aviation would be, of course, astute, tremendous to get us back to the highest category. And therefore, I want to wrap up by saying that this sub-regional approach is a necessary approach, and I welcome it. And I, of course, wish this bill safe passage. May it please you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Christopher 8. Is there another presenter? I recognize the mover for the bill for the second time to do her wrap-up.
Madam Speaker, with your leave, I rise to wind up the debate on the bill shortly entitled the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022, and to thank the honourable members of this House for their contribution and support of the safe passage of this bill.
The question is that, apologies. The question is that the bill entitled Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022 be read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to amend the Civil Aviation Act, Cap 8.03, otherwise known as the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022.
The bill has been read a second time. The House moves to committee stage. You may proceed.
Clauses 1 through 22.
The question is that clauses 1 through 22 stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The enacting clause.
The question is that the enacting clause stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against?
The title.
The question is that the title stands part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. House resumes.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the bill shortly entitled the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022 has been passed through the committee stage without amendments. This time I wish to seek your leave to move a motion to suspend Section 57 of the Standing Orders and have read for a third time and passed the bill shortly entitled the Civil Aviation Amendment Act 2022, Bill 2022.
Is there a seconder? I recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 4.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second that motion.
The question, therefore, is that Order 57 be suspended and that the bill be read a third time and passed into law. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to amend the Civil Aviation Act, Cap 8.03, otherwise known as the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022.
The bill has been read a third time and passed into law. Next item, please.
Motions, resolutions, adjournment.
The question is that this House stands adjourned, sign it. Apologies. I think I'm a bit too ahead of myself. Yes.
Madam Speaker, I rise on the adjournment to note that I am a new member to this honorable House. I think the honorable members are aware that my name is Masha Henderson. I was born and raised in the communities of Central Bastille, the same communities that nurtured and molded me into the woman that I am today. Madam Speaker, I am a daughter, sister, and mother to a precious 10-year-old boy who is celebrating his 10th birthday today, while his mother is here on the People's Business. Just over 2 months ago, our country went to the polls. We collectively chose to chart the course for a different future. It was and still is, Madam Speaker, the most humbling experience to have been chosen by the people of Central Bastille to be their representative in this honorable House. I wish at this time, Madam Speaker, just to crave your indulgence to allow me once again to thank the people of Central Bastille for entrusting me with the responsibility of helping to design the future of the communities of Central Bastille. I want to thank them for their confidence, the confidence that they have reposed in me, and for their overwhelming support at the polls on the 5th of August this year. The 6th? All the boxes. I'm humbled. I am deeply humbled, Madam Speaker, that my community has chosen me to represent them. It would be difficult to express in words how grateful I am for this unbelievable opportunity and tremendous responsibility, but I will try. Central Bastia has a character of its own. It has a history of a place where ordinary people have acted collectively to combat injustice and to fight for our rights. It has a history where the ordinary boy and girl have aspired to and have achieved great things, notwithstanding humble beginnings. It has a labor history. I have been fortunate, Madam Speaker, in my activism to have the guidance of many of these great labor people. Former representatives such as Her Excellency Marcella Liebert and the Honorable Dwyer Astafan, as well as the guidance of Captain Errol Maynard, all of whom have encouraged and supported me along this journey. They are all excellent examples of parliamentarians who have used their offices for the good of the people. At this time, Madam Speaker, if I can be permitted to say to the people of Central Bastia, to my people, to my community, I would not be standing in this honorable house today without you. I'm here to serve you with integrity and transparency. I am accountable to you. Rest assured that I would fight and defend you in this house. I am here to fight for resources and for funds and for roads. The Honorable Minister, Honorable Representative for number 4, for roads for my people. For number 3, forgive me. I would like to thank the good people of Central Bastia from the bottom of my heart, and to the people who have been with me on this journey for the past few months. I say a hearty thank you. Thank you all for your unconditional support. And to my family who never doubted me once and who have always been there for me, I am sorry for being an absent daughter. I'm sorry for being an absent sister. And for my aunts who I know have been complaining, I am sorry for being an absent niece. Lastly, but by no means last, to my darling son. You see, Madam Speaker, once school was out for the summer vacation in July, Liam was on the canvas trail with his mommy. He was helping to hand out my manifesto and was visible at every single public meeting to support and ensure that his mommy was okay. I love you, Liam, to the moon and back. Thank you for allowing your mommy to work for the community and to be of service to the people of Central Bastia without demands and judgment. This time, Madam Speaker, I would want to convey condolences to a few persons from Central Bastia Constituency 2, particularly to the family in Salt Pond Alley who lost their sister Shirley a few days ago. I want to give my sincerest condolences to them, as well as to Ava, who would have lost her partner, I think sometime last week. And somehow another one is evading me. But I wish at this point, Madam Speaker, to convey sincerest condolences to them. And so I thank you for your indulgence. Thank you for the support so far from the honorable members of this House. May it please you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for St. Christopher 2. I recognize the Honorable Member for St. Christopher 4.
Madam Speaker, I rise with your leave to make a small contribution on this matter of adjournment. However, before I get into my presentation, allow me to extend my most sincere condolences to the family and friends of the late Miss Cynthia Eugenius Watson, whose homegoing service I have recently returned from. She has been a true stalwart and a fixture in the Old Road community, and has impacted the lives of so many of us. May her soul rest in eternal peace. Madam Speaker, it is with a deep sense of gratitude, honor, and humility that I address this honorable House, cognizant of the fact that I stand here today only by the grace of God. Madam Speaker, my journey here has not been an easy one. In fact, it has been a journey rife with unimaginable challenges, some that the human spirit should never have to contemplate. Notwithstanding that, I am here. Here as living, breathing example to every Kittian individual, irrespective of their socioeconomic background, that with perseverance, imagination, innovation, and fervent prayer, that nothing is impossible. Nothing is out of your reach. You can serve at the highest level. You can make a difference. Madam Speaker, a few days ago I took an oath to serve my country, and with that said, I am mindful of the enormous responsibility bestowed on me and likewise on the honorable men and women in this chamber. Madam Speaker, the truth is that the hopes and dreams of every man, woman, and child in St. Christopher and Nevis relies in part on our ability to translate these dreams into reality. A reality of food on the table for each and every household. A reality of solid education and reliable health care. A reality that includes opportunities for business owners, creatives, sportsmen, farmers, fishers, and above all else, the reality of a better life for all. Madam Speaker, the good people of St. Christopher IV, from Challengers Village to New Guinea, have sent me here to secure those hopes and dreams, and I cannot and will not fail them. We cannot fail them. With that said, I wish to record my sincerest gratitude to the people of constituency number 4 for the confidence reposed in me. I am proud and humbled to be their voice and to execute their vision. It is their love that keeps me energized and inspired. And so I will defend their new day and better way, fearlessly and with vigor. I also wish to express my profound gratitude to the honorable men and women who sit on the government benches with me, better known as the A-Team. And by extension, the executive leadership of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. Madam Speaker, along this journey, they have challenged me to soar when necessary, while keeping me grounded with the constant reminder that this journey has been and will always be for the good that we can do. Madam Speaker, it will be remiss of me not to acknowledge the contribution of the great men and women upon whose shoulders I stand. I am fueled by the spirit of these heroes, both living and of blessed memory. However, I must single out Sam Terence Condor, because without his mentorship, Madam Speaker, there would be no Samuel Duggins, the politician, the parliamentarian. Indeed, the lessons have been plentiful, but undoubtedly, the most profound is a constant reminder to seek honor and not honors. Finally, my deepest heartfelt thanks to my family who have unreservedly supported me on this journey. And in closing, Madam Speaker, Our nation is at the crossroads, and all eyes are on us, particularly our young people. They are waiting with bated breath for a new era of prosperity. Time for political grandstanding is over, and the time for political maturity and inclusion is here. It is time for us to deliver for all of our people. It is time to work. Accordingly, I pledge my commitment to serve my constituency and the people of this country faithfully, with all of my energy, with all of my might, with all of my heart, and with all of my soul. Always bearing in mind that you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Thank you. If it pleases you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member for St. Christopher 4. I recognize the Honorable Senator Philip.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor for me and a privilege to actually bring greetings and thanks on this occasion. While this is not the first time that I've actually been in this house debating, I would have been here as a youth parliamentarian a few times. This is actually the first time that I'm here as a member of government, actually debating government business and moving bills that are passing into law. And so it's really a pleasure for me to be here, and I'd like to thank everyone. I don't have any constituents, but I have national constituents. And so I'd like to thank everyone who has been so supportive, in addition to my fellow colleagues, as well as family and friends, and just general members of the public who have really expressed overwhelming support and encouragement of me being a member of parliament and as a senator who's been appointed to support the work of this new government administration. And so I'm really honored, and I take this opportunity very seriously, and it's a pleasure for me to contribute. And so I look forward to playing my part and serving the country by contributing and influencing public discourse and helping to shape policy and laws in the advancement of our people in St. Kitts and Nevis. And you know, in doing this work and serving the people of our federation, I recognize and acknowledge my positionality as a young woman, one of 5 in this honorable house, and I take that to mean that I have an opportunity to bring different critical perspective to the work that we do, and I look forward to working with my fellow senators and with the honorable member for number 2, as well as my other male colleagues here on the government side as well as on the opposition. So thank you all very much, and I look forward to continued work and service. Thank you. May it please you.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Philip. I recognize the Honorable Member for Constituency 1.
Madam Speaker, I rise at this time on the adjournment to bring some brief remarks. And I heard my good brother, member for number 9, asking, what am I going to say? But I think it is fitting for me to share with you, Madam Speaker, while we waited on Parliament, the start of Parliament this morning, the good old member for number 9 reminded me that when I sat on that side, I released a prophetic word that I will reach over on this side. And I remember vividly the chattering and asking, when you're going to cross the floor and leave the honorable member for number 6. But look at God, and I am eternally grateful. But Madam Speaker, I want to thank the good people of East Bastille for their overwhelming support that they showed at the polls. And in thanking them, I must thank all of my volunteers, 100 plus, and my executive committees and advisors. Madam Speaker, I take this opportunity to remind the nation that during the election campaign, we on this side made a solemn promise to the people that we will be a government that ushers in a new day and a better way of doing things in this country. Among other things, we made it clear that the business of government is a business of the people, and we committed ourselves to regularly informing the citizens and residents about the issues that affect most of them and the actions we intend, Madam Speaker, to take to remedy these issues. In that context, Madam Speaker, today I'm here to inform the nation that the hard work of restoring our country's good name and making it #1 again has well and truly begun. But Madam Speaker, before I give an account of my stewardship, allow me once again to congratulate you on the election of Speaker of this National Assembly. Madam Speaker, as a teacher, it is always a delight to see your former students excel and achieve great heights. I therefore give you my love and special and profound pleasure in seeing you occupy that seat this morning. The honorable member for number 3 interjected and said, I teach everybody. And Madam Speaker, I'm not going to get emotional, but when I look at you and all of the many others in here, I have a hand on all of them, and I'm extremely proud of that. I am very young. I just started working at a very young age. And by doing that, Madam Speaker, I must also congratulate the Honorable Senator, the Deputy Speaker opposite, Honorable Jones, on her ascension in that position. It's unfortunate, but you know you'll be there for quite a while, but we'll all work together. Madam Speaker, as I stated before, the work has begun, and it should not come as no surprise to anyone that I will start briefly with education. Because over the past 82 days, I, along with the Permanent Secretary Pistano and the staff of the Ministry of Education, have been carrying out a review of our education plan, human and operational resources, and we begin the process of aligning our education system with our national development priorities for the 21st century. Madam Speaker, I outline to you and this honorable House the policy goals that my team and I so far has developed along. Allow me therefore to inform the nation of some of the effects we found in many of our schools. Madam Speaker, it pains me to report that in a good number of our schools, the physical plant was not fit for purpose. We discovered many examples of neglect over the past 7 years, including bathrooms that had not been in order for over 5 years, students using teachers' bathrooms, schools with missing windows and doors, classroom with inadequate lighting and electrical fixtures and fitting, equipment for technical subjects not available, and at times when they are, Madam Speaker, they are not usable because inadequate or non-existent of electrical fitting and sometimes no manual. There is a shortage of furniture in our schools, Madam Speaker. You have a situation of bat infestation and leaking roofs due to substandard work recently done by contractors. Very painful, Madam Speaker. Roofs removed left, right, and center. Millions of dollars not properly placed back on, and as a result, the children are suffering. Madam Speaker, those are some of the many problems that my ministry and this government are grappling with in our institution of learning. I want, however, to assure the citizens and residents of our beautiful country that they now have a government and a minister that is up to the task and is committed to putting our people first as we seek to move the country forward and upward. Madam Speaker, this school year, the Ministry of Education began working on some critical areas and projects, and I want you, with your permission, to outline two of the policy goals that so far have been formulated. Equitable access and participation, goal number 1. And when we speak of that goal, we look at the tertiary education. And I'm happy to report that all tuition fees for the attendance of the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College have been waived for our citizens. A teacher education award was approved by the cabinet to be presented to a student with the best overall results in the division of teacher education. Madam Speaker, when it comes to primary education, the cabinet has approved the merger of the Estridge Primary School and the Edgar T. Morris Primary School. This soft merger will occur in January of 2023, with the complete merger scheduled for September 2023. During this month, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education officials will be meeting with the relevant stakeholders to discuss upcoming activities as it relates to the merger. The Cotton Thomas Comprehensive School, Madam Speaker, will now occupy the Estridge Primary School so that all of the students can now be attending school instead of a shift system. And we give the assurance that we are going to modernize that school with all that they would require. Policy goal number 2, enhance sector efficiency and effectiveness through improved governance. Madam Speaker, I want to inform the Honorable House that I met with all primary schools and secondary school principals and their management teams, and I've started meeting with the private schools as well and the daycare. I even ventured over to Nevis, and I've given them the assurance that I will be back to touch the hearts of the other schools over there. The teams were able to discuss the needs and the successes and make recommendations for the way forward. I am happy to report that in keeping with my campaign promises, Madam Speaker, a second deputy principal was identified and announced for the following school: Washington Archibald High School, Bastia High School, Tucker Clark Primary, Dr. Williams Connor, Sandy Point Primary, Beach Allen. There are more, Madam Speaker, in just short 82 days. In addition, what I've just outlined by my ministry within those 82 days, Madam Speaker, also included paid traveling allowance for our resource teachers in early childhood development. Continue to provide schools with teaching assistants, and we are taking it a step further, Madam Speaker. Those teaching assistants will be trained by our CFBC Teacher Ed Division, and they will receive a certificate that will qualify them to be trained, certified teaching assistant. And we are not just talking, we are going to deliver. Madam Speaker, I'm happy to report that in such short time, I have installed a certified chef at our school meals program, and another one will be sent, Madam Speaker, to provide training in the kitchen, management, the plating of the food, menu design, and of course, Madam Speaker, taking the school meals to another level. Madam Speaker, it was just Tuesday. I had the opportunity of receiving a sum of money. And I want to thank the Jones group, because in just a short time, I just get a little donation, $100,000. And we are going to give that money, $50,000 to the Tucker Clark Primary School and $50,000 to the Irish Town Primary School, Madam Speaker. So, Honorable Member, we're working together. Well, the others will come. The others will come. You know, I'm a good beggar, so you know, we just started. But Madam Speaker, budget going to be more stuff because we'll be working, you know. We ain't on the honeymoon, we working. Now, Madam Speaker, moving quickly along. As I indicated earlier of the conditions of some of our schools, I've put in place, Madam Speaker, some initiatives in terms of renovation of our bathrooms. All of our school bathrooms will be renovated, Madam Speaker. Matter of fact, in a few days or weeks, I should say, you'll see work being done at the Washington Archibald High School, the Tucker Clark, and the SEMS, Charles E. Mills, as we are going to do it as a priority. And this is a phase 1, phase 2. We intend to do our window replacement in our schools, and phase 3, making sure that all of the electrical upgrades are in our schools. Of course, Madam Speaker, I can't conclude unless I bring to your attention that the Joshua Obadiah Williams Primary School will be a state-of-the-art primary school that will be one to look at in the region. The drawings have been done, and it's just a matter of time, Madam Speaker, before they go out for tendering. Madam Speaker, in wrapping up, some 8,000 devices between laptops and tablets have been already ordered or procured, because we gave this country the assurance that the one-to-one laptops will remain, and as expensive as the program is, we are delivering it to the students. Madam Speaker, maintenance is of importance, and we recognize the shortcomings now and again with public works being overwhelmed. On the political platform, I said to this nation that I will put in place an education maintenance unit. And I'm happy to report in less than 83 days, We have 4 persons already assigned in that unit, of course, coming from the STEP program, being trained through the PEP. Now I was talking about PEP, training them, because remember they changed the name, as Women in Construction and Other Skills. So we are going to be going around to our schools, and we are going to expand that unit by bringing on plumbers and electricians, so that when public works drop short, we have the backup, Madam Speaker. And of course, you will see shortly the formation of a national teaching council. And for too long we've been talking about it, and we will deliver the creation of the National Training Institute, and that is merging the AVEC, Project Strong, and National Skills under one umbrella, and making sure this time we get it right with certification. So, Madam Speaker, in this month of the elderly, I am happy to report that through the STEP program, they have already put in place a training program of 25 young people who would be certified as home care providers. And this is being done through our CFBC College. We can no longer neglect our elderly, Madam Speaker. And of course, Madam Speaker, as we look around, many of my constituents would have been calling on me about the water situation. But I'm happy to report, after sitting in cabinet, 2 our residents of East Bastia, help has already started. And the Honorable Member for number 3 have given us the assurance that he will fight to get this under control. Because of course, Madam Speaker, my area is a tourism-driven sector, and you know how that can affect our businesses over there. But I am grateful because, as I said, we are going to get that assistance from the Honorable Member for number 3. So, Madam Speaker, as a minister with responsibility as well for ecclesiastical affairs and faith base, I want to let the Honorable House know that things would not be the same when it comes to this unit. And as such, we are putting the necessary plans in place, where as soon as early as next year, we will identify a day that we will be able to declare in this country as our National Day of Prayer and Fasting. Not just make up things when it's convenient, but we are going to be doing that, Madam Speaker. And finally, I repeat, Madam Speaker, it is a new day and a better way. And you can be rest assured that we will take St. Kitts to number 1. To my colleagues on this side, the new one, Honorable Samal, member for number 4, one of my products. Honorable Senator Joel, another one of me, Truskanaipa. Honorable Ann Pep. Imagine, you see, she bring it up. When she came back with her degree, couldn't find no work to do. And I say, you know what, come, I'm going to hire you Ann Pep. And she didn't watch any face. On the labor. And you have here my junior minister, capable junior minister, Honorable Iceline, another one of my product, Skanaipa. And on my right, my dear sister, welcome Honorable Marsha Henderson, another one of my product, Madam Speaker. Used to live in my house, I cook for them, and I'm so proud of them today. And on my left, very young, I bring this one here, honorable member for number 3, right in the same house, expose him to debate, and I'm certain he never thought that today he would have been where he is, after getting that opportunity. And of course, thanking the Honorable Prime Minister, as I'm coming to God, for the confidence he has entrusted in me in being his deputy. And of course, the Honorable Senior Minister, apart from being my medical doctor at the time, my advisor to an extent.
You teach him too?
No, I didn't teach him. He has taught me quite a lot. And I am learning quickly, Madam Speaker. And of course, God, one of my advisors before he came in this honorable house. And I'm happy that he's here because he couldn't say no. Because when I pray about things, it got to happen. May it please the Honorable Speaker.
I recognize the honorable member for Nevis 10.
Madam Speaker, I wasn't going to rise on the adjournment, but just briefly, I just wanted to throw the challenge to one of the members on the government side. I am still very new in my political career, just 5 years. And it feels very strange on the opposition benches. It feels strange over here. It feels strange over here, Madam Speaker. But, I believe that the member for number 6 was looking in my head. Because this morning, the haste and the exuberance that he came on this side with this morning, I believe that he wants to come back. And so, I believe he was coming to tell me, let's exchange. And so number for 6, we can have that discussion. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member for Nevis 10. I recognize the honorable member for St. Christopher 3.
Well. Madam Speaker, with your leave, I rise to make a brief contribution on the adjournment after my colleague from constituency number 1 took up a little time there as 5 minutes as he made his own contribution on the adjournment. First, I want to take this opportunity officially to congratulate you, Madam Speaker, to the ascension to your post as Speaker, and by the way that you have conducted the affairs of Parliament so far. I think we are in for a very good session of Parliament over the next 5 years. So congratulations on your appointment, and also to all of the other members of this honorable house. Firstly, to the members on the opposite side, congratulations on your election to your positions as representatives of your respective constituencies, and also on the appointment of Senator opposite Deputy Speaker for your new role as Deputy Speaker of this House. And I think we have started in the right vein in terms of developing a cooperation and coordination as it is meant to be with respect to our Parliament, where we will have differing views but understand that we must share the roles in this Parliament for the betterment of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. So I want to thank the honourable members for being a part of the wholesome look of Parliament. And Madam Speaker, I want to really take this opportunity to give God Almighty all the thanks and praise for his mercies in putting not only myself, but all of my colleagues on this side of the aisle. Congratulations to each and every one of you, those of us who campaigned and canvassed, and the people have given us an opportunity. And for those who have been appointed to their respective positions, our senators, Honorable Senator Philip, Honorable Senator Dr. Clark, and Senator A.G. Garth Wilkin. I don't have the stories like my colleague from number 1 in teaching everybody over here. So I just want to congratulate you all and really give God all the praise and thanks for this most humbling honor to represent once again the people of constituency number 3. I am now a living example of why you should never, ever give up. As many of you would know, I first came to Parliament in 2015. And unfortunately, sometime thereafter, I was not successful in the previous session of Parliament in retaining. And never before in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis has anyone who previously held a seat in this honorable house and then lose that seat has ever come back to regain the seat again. And so I want to thank the good people of constituency number 3 for giving me this opportunity, yes, to make history and come back, but also this opportunity to serve them for the first time in government. And I will do my utmost to make them feel proud of that decision. I am no stranger to things like these because I remember in another, well, not in another life, you know, in this life, but another aspect of my being, where I was a sort of what they call a king. And I would have lost. Almost. Almost finished the song. But I went back to the drawing board and I said, no, I'm going to come better. And I'm glad that I've had those experiences to know that regardless of where you find yourself in life, there is always, as long as you have breath, there's a way. And you just have to work hard at it. So thank you very much to the people of constituency number 3 for giving me this opportunity and reposing your confidence to have me as your representative. My commitment is real, and that is why even since being elected once again to this position, I continue to keep my constituency office open every single day of the week. And every Tuesday and Wednesday, as long as I am on the island and not engaged in government business overseas, I am meeting my constituents. My commitment is real. That is why I continue my constituency visits around the constituency and taking my one-on-one visits outside of the constituency office into the communities. And I intend to continue to do that, to show that I am here to be your representative and to get your business done in this honorable house. Madam Speaker, permit me to take this opportunity to acknowledge my family. My wife, who has been my support and my strength for over 20 years. And we share a beautiful family together with my children, Aliella and Chazelle. And last night when I was in the constituency office meeting constituents, it was about after 9, and I know that they needed to go to bed. But I had not seen them in the evening for a few nights. And so I rushed home because I said, I cannot let another night go and I don't get to kiss them goodnight while they were awake. And so I called my wife, or I think my wife called me at the time, and I said, don't let them go upstairs. Keep them downstairs, because I want to be able to come home and see them run into my arms. And so I want to thank them for their patience and their understanding, because it can be a bit much when your daughters are asking you, are you going again? I thought we were supposed to play tonight, or I have a math test tomorrow. Daddy, you said you were going to do this. And so I want to thank them for their patience thus far, because they have been very understanding. And in particular, my wife, who has been with me, as I said, through all of my successes, all of my ups and downs, and she is really my rock and support. And so I want to publicly thank them for being with me and giving me that strength that I need to fulfill my responsibility as a representative and now as a minister. Madam Speaker, some people see that when you're on the government side of the benches, that it's a joyride of privileges and the spotlight. And we know, and members opposite know, that sometimes it is hardly that. There is a lot of work to be done, and the work has begun. And we gave a commitment that we will be focused on the work of the people. And I, as minister responsible for infrastructure, and the member from number 2 was asking for her roads, so I turned to the Minister of Finance and asked for the money. And so we are committed to building out our infrastructure in the country. Say that again? Oh yes, all over. There's plenty of work to be done. With respect to our energy infrastructure, we are on the precipice, really, unfortunately. And as time goes by, we will explore what our options are. And then our water situation, where we cannot, at the moment, provide 24/7 water to our people. It is not an easy fix. It will not be overnight. It will take some time. But we are committed to doing the work. And finally, with respect to ICT, we are going to transform the digital landscape of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I'm excited about the prospects of the digital transformation of St. Kitts to have a transition to where we become the envy of the region and the world. And with all of these things, as I've met with a number of stakeholders in these different areas, some including in particular the minister responsible for climate change and environment, I keep repeating one thing, and I think I want to end with this. That St. Kitts and Nevis is small enough. Small enough. Something I've been saying for years. We are small enough such that when a group of men and women here in this parliament, 15 of us, I think it is, and in our cabinet, where there are 9, decide to make a good decision, because we are small enough, we can impact the entire federation in a short period of time, because we're small enough. If we stay zero focused on only attending to the people's needs, we are small enough to get what we need done. So when we're meeting in our international circles and with our investors, we're building out our infrastructure in ICT or in energy. It's sometimes but a drop in the bucket of some of their much larger pools of investment. Because we are small enough, we are in the perfect position to leverage our size to get things done quickly for our people in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I am always going to remember that we are small enough to make a big impact. Unlike even some of our Caribbean colleagues in Jamaica that has 2-point-something million people, even a good policy there will take years to reach in the hillsides and the terrains of Jamaica. Or in Trinidad, where there's 1-point-something million people, it will take years to permeate the different cultural backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds, even if it is a good policy supported by everybody in a parliament or a cabinet. But in St. Kitts and Nevis, when we sit as a cabinet and in this parliament and make a good decision, in an instant, we could affect the lives of an entire country. And I'm excited to be a part of that prospect. And that is why on this adjournment I thought it fitting to rise and give my congratulations and thanks, but also to look forward to what I hope to be a very exciting and engaging and fulfilling time here on the government benches. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Christopher III. I recognize the Honourable Senator, Dr. Clark.
Madam Speaker, again, I use this opportunity on the adjournment to congratulate you on your post as Speaker of this Honourable House. And I'm going to excessively say Madam Speaker because the sound is so pleasing to my ears. Congratulations, you deserve this. Not just because you're a woman, but because you are duly qualified. I also use this opportunity to welcome the other women to our parliament, in particular our Deputy Speaker. Welcome. And, of course, the members on the government side who have had the opportunity and the pleasure of serving with for some 3 months. It's been a pleasure. When a government is intentional about giving young people and young women an opportunity, not just to sit in parliament as a token, but to actually govern, to be in charge of ministries. And not that there are ministries that are more important than others, but in people's perception, to be in charge of the ministries. And I want to point out, for example, and thank our Honourable Prime Minister for allowing me as a female and as a young person to manage what some people think is probably one of the most difficult ministries that we have, and that's sustainable development. Thank you. It suggests that the Prime Minister trusts his cabinet, that he trusts young people, and he trusts young women. And while I may not be technically a youth, I am never going to give up the opportunity to advocate. I'm not 35. by a couple days. I will never give up the opportunity to advocate for youth and young people to be included in these spaces where we can significantly contribute to legislation, to policy making, and to good governance. Young people, as our leader says, must always have a seat at the table. And as I always say to young people and young women, whenever you get that seat at the table, spread out. Spread out so that you can make space for when your colleague comes, and spread out so that people know you are here to contribute. Importantly, I want to pause to give congratulations to all the students who will be graduating. It's graduation season. Yesterday, the Minister of Education and Senior Minister and I had the pleasure of joining the Sadler's Secondary School in their graduation, and students are happy. It was a tough COVID-19 experience. I think this is the last batch of COVID-19 students, and I know what they went through. I taught them at Cairn High School. It was not easy. So it pleases me that our Minister of Education has made the commitment to provide the devices for our students. We must move with technology. Finally, I want to say that women belong in Parliament. Women belong in cabinet. Women belong in positions of leadership. And what we have done here in St. Kitts and Nevis collectively, the leader of the opposition and our Prime Minister and member for number 8, we have moved us closer to equity, to development standards which suggest that we are on the right path. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has moved the world backwards about 100 years in terms of achieving gender equity. But St. Kitts and Nevis will move against that statistics as we continue to empower our young women. Look at our boards, look at the directors, our PSs, our CEOs. We are intentional about empowering young people, about empowering women, and ensuring that St. Kitts and Nevis is a place of inclusivity. For 7 years, unfortunately, some of us would have suffered from a paradigm of exclusivity. It doesn't help St. Kitts and Nevis when people who can contribute, who are suitably qualified, and who are passionate are demoted, diminished, excluded for no other reason save the color they choose to support. I will not allow this government, this parliament, by my own voice, to support ever again any system where young people and young women and young men in St. Kitts and Nevis are not afforded an opportunity to serve. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Dr. Clark. I recognize the Honorable Senator, Ms. Jones from Nevis, the Honorable Senator from Nevis, Deputy Speaker Jones.
Madam Speaker, I rise to offer sincerest gratitude to everyone for your love and support on my appointment as Senator and Deputy Speaker in this Honorable House. I wish to convey special thanks to the Leader of the Opposition and my colleagues for affording me this opportunity. To my family, friends, well-wishers, and the good people of Nevis, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you, Madam Speaker, and the members of this Honorable House as we continue to create laws and regulations that would best govern our country. Thank you. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Jones.
Mr. Speaker,
I recognize the Honorable Member for St.
Yes.
Christopher 6.
I just want to use this opportunity to do as my colleagues have done, to really thank the people who have brought us on this side and took us from that side. I really want to say that as the longest serving member of this parliament in recent times, we intend to ensure that we not only pursue the people's business as we should, but we develop among ourselves a camaraderie, not only on this side, but also on the other side of the opposition. In the throne speech that was delivered on Tuesday by Her Excellency, the Governor General's deputy, one of the things that was said in the closing is that as we try our very best to improve the human conditions for our people, that we would want to engender better relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis. There was a pledge that we would ensure that we would have the best constitutional construct. And that, of course, is going to take collaboration between the two sides. There is nothing that is perfect, but I'm sure that we can bring it as close as possible to perfection if we agree among ourselves that that is what we would want. Finally, I left earlier because I had to receive a large group, a delegation from Korea that was waiting in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They are determined to assist in advancing the lives of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And then I went down to Middle Island, where Eugenius Watson was being buried. Her mortal remains. I make mention of that because she has been what I call the symbol of a strong woman who has been a stalwart for the labor movement. Born in 1930, so has gone through the struggles and gave her life eventually a month ago as she struggled eventually to live. We have to make sure that the family members who remain, her daughters and her sons and grandchildren, and the people in Old Road whose lives she would have impacted over the years, remember that people can start sometimes out of abject poverty, but can rise to become leaders in their own right in our communities. Mrs. Watson was one of such persons. Would have impacted, I am sure, the lives of every Old Rhodian and those from the neighboring villages who came there to do business at her shop, grocery store, ever since I was going to grammar school. I can recall that shop being there. And so she would have been a loss, an iconic loss to the people of Old Road and constituency number 4. It was a pity that I was not at home when she eventually passed. But I want to use this opportunity, since I didn't get the opportunity in the church this afternoon, to eulogize her in this way, so that as she goes home to her permanent rest, that she and her family would have known that she has lived a purposeful life and would have made life better for so many people while she tread this path. 2 other persons in my communities have died. I make mention in particular to Caroline Francis of St. Paul's, who has a daughter, Latoya Francis, who has been working in the government service for over 20 years in the Ministry of National Security. Latoya's mom would have passed yesterday overnight, and we convey to her as public servants, as ministers of government, our profound condolences. And another close relative from Newton Ground, by the name of Isame Francis as well, would have passed. I personally, on behalf of the people of constituency number 6, bring condolences to the families. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Christopher 6. I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 11.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I believe the hour is late, yes, but it would be an opportunity missed by myself if I were not to speak on the adjournment and thank the good constituents of Nevis 11 for reposing their trust and confidence in me on August 5th. Now, I will say to you, Madam Speaker, that I contested my 4th election at the federal level on August 5th. First one being in 2010, and again in 2015, then one in 2020, and now repeating such feat again in 2022. It may seem like a long time, but perhaps I started young. So I was able to take the licks early and prevail at a later time. But I am happy to be here once again, Madam Speaker, simply because when persons see the merit in you being at this particular level, they will vote for you. And I do believe they saw something in me in 2020 and again in 2022 to say, well, you are deserving of being at the federal level to represent the constituency of Nevis 11, which includes St. Thomas Parish and St. James Parish. Of course, I would contest, or I'm the representative of St. James at the local level, but St. Thomas Parish, for persons listening, will know that both parishes are combined to arrive at Nevis 11. So it is a large constituency, and those who want to get a geographical understanding, it stretches from the bottom of Zion Hill. That is where it starts and ends at Craddock Road. So that vast landmass is what I have to cover as the representative, whether I'm canvassing or driving around. But be that as it may, I was the former Minister of Agriculture for at least 2 years, and I certainly believe that we would have accomplished some things at that level. And I want to extend my hand of friendship to the current Minister of Agriculture publicly, because as Nevis go and as St. Kitts go, then the Federation goes hand in hand together. And if we are doing good things on Nevis and good things are being done on St. Kitts, and great things are happening in the Federation. We talk about food security, sustainability, and resilience in agriculture. It really takes a cohesive effort for that to happen. So I once again extend my hand of friendship, sir. And indeed, I am pledging here now, from where I stand, that I hope to be a partner in ensuring that we are doing the people's business and not necessarily being here clamoring over things, trivial things, when in truth and in fact, great things can be accomplished here over the next 5 years. So that pledge is made. And once again, Madam Speaker, I extend congratulations to you. And we'll try to make your work easy. Your workload would be an easy one, I suppose, because we'll try our best to have some decorum here to make sure that the people benefit from our discourse. And this is not one that reflects badly on us. So with those few words, Madam Speaker, I thank you for the time today, and may it please you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Nevis 11, and I'd say so far so good.
That's right. And
I recognize the Honorable Attorney General.
Play that song when you go home today. It's a song.
May it please you, Madam Speaker, I would like to start by congratulating you and wishing you all the very best. You've had a great start to your tenure. I'm quite proud of you as your colleague. And also to thank the clerk, who has run 2 very efficient parliaments. So special thanks to her. I will be mercifully brief. I believe that there are a couple of themes that ran in the various adjournments from my learned colleagues, one of them being family. I would not be here without the support of my family. Today is my mother's birthday, and I have to go and cut cake with her in a little bit. So I wish to thank her for her support, my father for his always supporting me whatever I wanted to do, my wife who's my rock, my 2 children. I listening to the member for number 3's statement about not being able to hug your children at night because you're working hard. I share that similar issue. So I'm going to try to find that balance where I can go home, because there's nothing in this world like hugging your children good night, I'll tell you that. And on the theme of family, I think it's important to let the nation know, if they're still listening at this time, that the members and the senators on this side, we are family. Whilst some of us have just joined the family, there are some interconnections that a lot of people don't know about that makes us a unit. For example, Dr. Douglas is the member for number 6's daughter is my god sister, who I'm quite fond of. Member for number 3, our daughters are best friends in the same class. Honorable member for number 1, as he said, we have had many discussions about things that have happened in this parliament in the past, and I consider him a very good friend. Honorable member for number 2 was my colleague for many, many years in practice. Senator, junior minister, and I, when I was with the bar this year, did a continuing legal education seminar where we worked together on it. And honorable member for number 4, our wives are best friends, and I have known him for many, many, many years, many years. And the Prime Minister, member for number 8, is one of the reasons why I'm here. He was my teacher when I was 14 years old, and he changed my life. I have no hesitation of telling people that, and I've told him that, and he understands that. He took a fairly good student and made him into a student that cared about learning. And part of why I'm here is because I want to be able to pay him back. So I'm thankful to him for asking me and choosing me to be his legal advisor and the legal advisor for the government, and I will do my best. And I saved what I say, the best for last, because almost like my new best friend in cabinet is the Honorable Senator Dr. Clark. We talk more than I think any of myself and anyone else in cabinet. So I really wanted to say that so people understood that we really are trying to do the best for this federation. We see this federation as one federation. We're prepared to work with the members on the other side who remain, because we see Nevis as an important part of this federation. Everything we do will be for the benefit of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I personally believe in that. We've started on a path of collaboration. I hope that we continue on that path. My ancestry is from Rice's village in Gingerland. My grandfather was from Bath village. My last name originates in Nevis, so I have a very deep connection to Nevis. And I believe that all of us agree, and we're all on the same page, that we are in this together. And we've come to work hard. As member for number 2 said, we're not on a honeymoon. We've come to do the work of the people. And the people of our constituents. I have no constituents except for every single person in St. Kitts and Nevis who I'll work hard for. And I'm pleased to be able to serve them in this place, and I will do it to the best of my ability. And I thank my colleagues for allowing me to that opportunity. And I wish everyone a wonderful evening. And I have to say, happy birthday, Mommy. With that, may it please you.
Thank you, Honorable Attorney General. I recognize the Honorable Member for Nevis 9.
Madam Speaker, there's been so much chatter that I move to say something. Madam Speaker, as I heard the various speeches on the adjournment and listened to those on the government side, I felt moved to rise to congratulate the new Prime Minister and his team. I feel it's a good team, and I feel that if they continue in the vein that they have expressed, that they will do well for the country. I reflect that prior to my being fired. What are you laughing for? You too? No. You too? So prior to us being fired, we all sat on the government benches, and we well understand the circumstances that led to August 5th and where we now are. But the thing that I think is resonating with me is that it behooves us all to be humble. We should not take this privilege for granted, because just a few months ago I was a Minister of Government. Now I am still privileged to be a Member of Parliament, although not on the government side. And I would encourage the government members, but also those on this side and those who might be listening and have aspirations to be here, that they remember to be humble. That humility is very important. Because you see, if you approach this in the right way, with the right approach, the right attitude, if you understand that you're here and it's a privilege and you've come to serve, then changing sides doesn't impact you as much. If you become too invested in your position and you start to call yourself by exotic names and start to be puffed up, then when that position is taken away, I think you find yourself bereft and in a terrible state. And so people have said to me, how does it feel now that you're in opposition? And I said, I feel fine. Because I recall, unlike some who are saying they've come here for the first time, that I have grown old in this place. Because I came here in 2007. I've been here for 15 years. In fact, I'm the 4th longest serving parliamentarian. And I remember saying once in my youth, when I was full of vigor and vitality, to the honorable member from number 6, that he found himself in the checkout lounge of politics. And never would I have thought that I too would get one day to that checkout lounge. But that is now the reality, that I too find myself in that lounge and I hear them calling my name to board the flight. So it is the nature of life. Life is a continuum, and I believe that if we recognize why we're here, that we've come to make a contribution and then to move on, and allow those who come after to make their contribution, and that we not become too wedded to the idea that we are in a particular position, because in an instant that position could be taken away. That is the beauty of our democracy. And if there's one lesson that has come out of all this for me, is that ultimately the democracy that is St. Kitts and Nevis works, it is strong, and that it has delivered a result. And the people have spoken, and we must respect that and get down now to the work that is important. So, I would want to thank the good people of Nevis 9 because they have been with me as I have been with them since August of 2007. And they've remained with me. Every election, I find myself in the difficult place of having the pontificators say that I'm the one who will lose. And each election thus far, I've proven them wrong. And I think that the people of Nevis have seen something in the members on this side. Because for the very first time in 2020, they gave the party that I'm privileged to lead, the Concerned Citizens Movement, all 3 seats on the island of Nevis. And in 2022, the people, just to show that it was not an aberration, they did it again. And I am confident that when the time comes soon, they will do the right thing and keep Nevis blue. The reason I'm confident is because I believe that people understand the difference between those who come perhaps to position and to posture and those who come to make a genuine contribution. And I would like, as a member of this parliament, sitting on these benches, to make my contribution and that my colleagues will make their contribution so that when the time comes, as it must for all of us, we can move off and those who come after will say, yes, these were people who contributed and benefited the people of this country. And so, having been in this parliament for some time, I can tell you, it will get testy. There will sometimes be sharp exchanges. There will sometimes be disagreements. But if, Madam Speaker, we remember why we're here, I come back to that central theme. If we're grounded in service to our people, then I think ultimately all will be well. And so I wish the government well. They may say, why are you wishing them well? You're in opposition. I'm wishing them well because if they do well, the country does well. And that, I think, is important. I don't agree with them that we're going to be over here for all this time, because the member for number 1, I think, is mistaken in that assertion. And I will only remind him that when I suggested the same to him, look how quick he reached over there. So I hope... Madam Speaker, we must leave because we have a commitment on Nevis shortly, and so we must get back over. But I really wanted to say thank you for this privilege. Thank you to the people of Nevis. Thank you to my constituents in number 9. And thank you for putting us in a position where we can now invest in a young woman who's here, invest in young people, recognizing that they must be the ones now to take this country forward. And one of the things I've been quite impressed with the government side is the investment in women and the investment in youth. There are several young people over there, and I am optimistic. I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic for our country. And I think despite all that has been said, despite all that has happened, that ultimately our democracy is strong. It worked, and where there were anomalies and difficulties, the people corrected that. They did so for themselves, in their best interests, and ultimately they have a government by them and for them. And that, I think, is what our democracy is all about. So I don't have any regrets. I feel that this period in our history has strengthened our democracy. It has given all of us greater confidence that ultimately, despite the difficulties and despite the problems that develop from time to time, that St. Kitts and Nevis is a democracy that works. It is a democracy that is strong. And ultimately, once we have free and fair elections, our people are able to decide on the government of their choice. And so I thought when a member from number 6, my old friend, stood up, he would have announced his retirement. And I was minded, if he had done so, to stand up behind him and announce mine as well. But since he has not done so, I will demur. and perhaps come on another occasion. But I am deeply honored and privileged to have this opportunity. And I think that every young man, every young woman, every boy and girl out there should aspire to have an opportunity to serve our people in the highest lawmaking body, the Parliament. And you sitting there, Madam Speaker, the woman in that chair, the Deputy Speaker who's also a woman, a clerk who's also a woman, I feel that we are in good hands. We are in a good position, and that our country should be proud of what we've been able to accomplish thus far. With those few words, I pray to take my leave. I would wish all members a happy evening, and we would, as we like to say, go and now bang some water to get to Nevis so that we could attend our function there. So thank you, and may it please you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Nevis 9. I recognize the Honorable Member for St. Christopher 8.
Madam Speaker, I rise to ultimately wrap up the adjournment for this evening. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate all the members who are here, and even though we are running a late hour, to say basically that their presence here today is a reflection of what would have occurred on August 5th. I want to say to those who are definitely on the opposite side, as they leave, and I wish they reach home safely, that we look forward to working with them closely as we have started thus far. My standing here today is a testimony really of hard work and perseverance. I think that it demonstrates not only to me, but there are a lot of lessons to be learned, and I would wish that they would be extracted. And I think that the leader of the opposition alluded to one such, and it's the humility with which you have to approach really serving the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. That in a great sense that power does not belong to anybody, it belongs to the people. And the people will decide who they want to represent them. I remember days when I would be in the gallery and you'll have members on the government side who would attack me, and I would just smile. And I smiled, and I didn't take it with any hard feelings or bitterness, because I always knew to a great extent that those who accede to high positions and think that they are the owners of it will soon fall under their power, under the weight of their haughtiness. And so that in itself is a lesson to me, that having this position is not because I am high and mighty, but because there's a God and the people who vested their trust in me. And as they have given it to me, I am very aware as well that they can take it from me. And so I would like to say to all members of this House and all members of the Cabinet to always remember that we are here to serve the people and not to serve ourselves. Your government, our government, has started to work and has started to work in earnest, in the sense that we have done a number of critical things, and that is why the member from number 2 said that we are not on a honeymoon, but we are really working. It takes courage to make some of the tough decisions that have to be made. It takes courage to make the tough decision that our parliament must be made up of women and young people. It takes courage to ensure that your cabinet must be made up of women and young people. It takes courage to make sure that your CEOs and your PSs reflect the true equity that we wish to push forward here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so on this side, I want to thank the members for their courage. And as we go out and we continue to work among the people, we must also recognize that we have to deliver for the people as well. And the people expect us to deliver. And that is why I am saying that thus far we have done tremendously well for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have done a number of critical things, opening up the country, dealing with the injustices to do with those who did not receive pay because they didn't take a vaccine, dealing with the injustice of not giving an honorarium to at least 2,000 people who deserve it. Also, we are putting things in place to make sure that the ministries are working and working efficiently. And what I love about this team, and I keep saying it, from the inception when we said that this was an A team, is that each member on this team is an expert in his field, in his or her own right. And that gives me great comfort to know that when any of these members are anywhere representing their ministries, their government, their cabinet, themselves, their family, that you have that assurance that you are well represented. And you heard that today. When you heard the learned ages stands up and discuss the law, there's no doubt of his depth of understanding, knowledge, capacity, competency. Youthful, but yet has that great sense of experience and ways of how to make sure that he represents well. When you listen to our senior minister, it goes without saying he's the most experienced in the house and understands, and by his example will lead and give others example in that sense. When you look at our minister of the member for number 4, Mr. Samuel Douglas, I met with AECA, who deals with agriculture. And I said, you met the Minister of Agriculture? And they said, yes. And she said, we love the Minister of Agriculture. He's a hands-on man. He knows agriculture. I said, well, he's a farmer. A professional one. That's competence. When you look at our senator, who is a minister, and who manages one of the largest ministries, sustainable development, that I can go to bed and sleep at night knowing that that ministry is well handled. That is the type of confidence that you want your ministers to engender in you as the leader. And when you go to our other senator, Senator Aislinn Phillip, and her area of study as she sits in the Ministry of Gender Affairs, Youth and so forth, aging and all these things, she's actually studied, and she has studied in these areas. So she is well versed in these areas. And so those in that ministry know that they have a minister who has that hands-on experience and that critical formal education to deal with that. When you go over to our minister, member from number 2, who is handling civil aviation and tourism, and I was in a meeting with her yesterday, and you see how she's already handling that ministry, herself having experience to deal with that type of industry. But in addition to that, well-accomplished lawyer as well to deal with the critical matters of what were being discussed with respect to the legislation from the OECS authority to be implemented here in our parliament. That's confidence, that's competence. And so the people of St. Kitts and Nevis must know that in putting this team together, it required a great deal of thought, commitment, collaboration, because this couldn't have been a one-person job. And when you listen to the monologue from the Minister of Education today, who is a teacher of all, and he lays out before the country his plans, his ideas. People have known him for so many years and know that he is very competent. I will say without a doubt that he reflects the best of what we have to offer, especially in his field. And so he brings that level of confidence. And our leader, and he's a deputy prime minister, and he serves well. Each time I travel and I do that thing and leave that instrument, and you know when you come back, work is actually done. When you travel, you sleep well, when you have a few hours to sleep, because you left the country in the hands of a competent acting prime minister, our deputy prime minister. I want to thank him for his hard work thus far. And then the leader of government business, who is right here next to me, the Honorable Congressman Maynard, who would have been in this house before, and whose experience here qualifies him to be leader of government business. Well organized, making sure that when the team presents an organized itself and organizes itself in here, that it presents itself to the public as a professional, well-polished team, that wherever it is seen, whether locally, regionally, or internationally, that is the type of image that we will portray. And so I want to thank him for his leadership in that part of our parliamentary experience. But I also want to say that in this House, I want to also recognize the young clerk of the House. I agree with the learned Attorney General that she's doing an excellent job and she's working hard. I also want to recognize the officer, of course, who has been here, working hard. Sergeant of Arms. And the Sergeant of Arms, I know her very well. And the reason why I'm highlighting this is that people can see that in this Parliament, and as was mentioned by our Senator, the Honorable Dr. Joy Clark, that we would recognize that women have their place at the table. And to you, Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate you. You are handling it like you have been here for over 5 years or more. It means that you have been well coached, you take your position seriously, you're competent, but apart from that competence, you have applied yourself to make sure that you execute well. And you have mentioned one who has helped you, the Honorable Curtis Martin, and I want to thank him for the tremendous work that he has done with you thus far. But I will wrap up by saying that I want to recognize a couple of the things here and to really express condolences to Miss Watson, the family of Miss Watson who passed. She was actually a patient of mine for some time. And the qualities that were expressed that she possessed by the member from number 6 are true. Even in her latter years, she was a woman who exuded a great deal of leadership qualities that I admired then, and her commitment to her family, but her commitment also to the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. And so to her family, here and abroad, I want to express deepest condolences. And to the family, my own family, passing of Jadel Brown, who passed to their young man in unfortunate circumstances, I too want to express my condolences to his immediate family, as he is my cousin. And to the Pemberton family of Keon, the patriarch of that family, I want to extend condolences as well. But I want to say to the people of Upper Monkey Hill, where I'm from, I want to thank them for the years of support that they've given me. The people in the wider great state of St. Peter's area, I also want to say thanks to them for sticking with me and encouraging me through the dark, difficult days of losing 2 elections, but pushing me along and buttressing me, making sure that I would get here to represent them, but not only as a representative, but as the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. To the people of Connery, Kitsodad, the people of Half Moon, the people of Canada, the people of Keys, the people of Keon, the people of Otleys. And I'm taking my time to make sure that I call all those major communities in between, because all of them were determined that I would get there. Here. And I want to say from the depths of my heart, thanks to all of them. And of course, the great state, yes, that I spoke about, Upper Monkey Hill, the greatest St. Peter's, that I mentioned before. And I finally want to say to the comrades of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, the stalwarts of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, that it would be remiss of me not to mention them. They have fought hard, they have fought clean, they have been consistent, they have sacrificed tremendously to get their party back at the helm of government. And they have not done it for selfish reasons, but they have done it because they think and they know that we offer the best option for St. Kitts and Nevis. And so from the depths of my heart, as the Prime Minister and the leader of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, I want to say sincere thanks to all the comrades. Thank you on all of our behalves for what you have done to ensure that your organization, your movement is back at the helm and you expect us to deliver for our federation. Madam Speaker, to all of St. Kitts and Nevis, I want to say thanks to all of them for believing in our country, believing in the democratic process, believing that there was a better way and a new day. And we are enjoying that as we lead our country to become once again number one. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member for St. Christopher 8. Any other presentations? Adjournment. Yes, please.
Madam Speaker, I rise seeking or moving a motion to have this Honorable House adjourn sine die.
Any seconders?
Madam Speaker, I beg to second that motion.
The question is that this Honorable House stands adjourned sine die. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. This Honorable House stands adjourned.
You found the sound. 98.9 Win FM.